morning, Surf City. Welcome to the work session agenda for the May 17th, 2024. At this time, we're going to call the meeting to order, and I'm going to call on Councilwoman Trudy Solomon to lead us in our invocation and our pledge. If you would, please stand.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day, this break from the rainy weather, the sunshine that you provided. Thank you for these wonderful people who love our town dearly. There are here in this room, but there are many more who are not here. Thank you for the opportunity, all the opportunities that you bring to us to create events for our town and neighbor, just being so neighborly. For the opportunity to manage a lot of entities of this town for the safety and well-being of our residents. Lord, help us to do well with what you put before us. Help us to work together in all circumstances and work towards a brighter future. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, welcome. And at this time, I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
A second.
A first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries to adopt the agenda. Are there any public comments on today's meeting? No public comments, so we will move to our first item of the work session, and I'll call upon Amy Kimes.
I'll do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Carla Citarelli. Resolution supporting de-annexation request for 207 Quartz Lane.
We received a letter from the property owner at 207 Quartz Lane. PIN number is 42358916540000. It's approximately a half acre. It was annexed in as part of a 7.5 acre tract in 2006, and the property owner is asking that we de-annex or support de-annexation of his half acre.
Okay,
And he is here if there's any questions.
okay. So at, this property was annexed in, was asked to be annexed in several years ago,
2006.
2006. And once it becomes annexed into the town, it is then taxed as a town property. I'm not, Amy, can you come up and maybe answer some questions that we may have? So when someone asks to be annexed, what are they looking for when they ask to be annexed?
Typically, if you're asking to come into the town, you're looking either for services that we provide, such as sewer or water, or you're looking at our zoning. So oftentimes, town zonings may be a little, the sizing of the lots may be a little less than what you typically would find in the county. So most people are either looking for that sewer water service or for the zoning that we can provide if they can't do what they want to do in the zoning that they're currently in.
I know this has been almost, 19 years?
The annexation occurred on May 2nd of 2006.
So looking back, in order to get this lot established, can you say for sure if it was for zoning purposes?
I cannot say for sure. I did look in the records a little bit yesterday. Obviously, I wasn't here in 2006. The staff report was very limited and did not really speak to why the request was made.
Does anyone else have any questions?
The immediate adjacent properties are in Surf City or not?
Yes
You
and
said
no.
it was part of a larger tract.
So it was, there's part of a larger tract that came in 2006, and then adjacent to the back of that tract, another portion came in 2018. So there is an area, and then it's right across from our ETJ area over there.
So this wouldn't be in the ETJ then?
It would not be in the ETJ, it is actually in the town, and if it left, it would not be in the ETJ area of town.
The one surrounding, beside it are in the town, that was part of the original tract.
So if I am standing on the lot itself and facing the road, to my left is in town, to my right is outside of town, but behind the lot to my right is inside of town. I think that's right.
I'm the current owner, and the lot in
Come on up to the mic,
So we
sir.
can hear you at the mic.
Please state your name and address.
I live at 309 Edgewater Way, Surf City. I'm the current owner of 207 Cords Lane. I was trying to get an answer why it's within Surf City jurisdiction when the lot in front, to the right of me, behind me, to the left is, but everything else isn't. And I was interested in purchasing the lot next to 207 Cords Lane, which is not in Surf City jurisdiction. So if I were to build, would half my house be in the jurisdiction, the other half not, if I purchased the other lot to the right of me?
Would you be recombining the lots into one?
That was the purpose. And I found out when I was going to purchase the other lot that half is within the jurisdiction and the other half isn't.
So you purchased 207 already?
Correct.
You owned that, and
Yep.
you knew that was Surf City?
Actually, nobody really knew it was Surf City until after. I got a tax bill from the town about a week ago for past due taxes from 2 years ago. So,
Buy it directly for sale by owner.
yes. So I couldn't get an answer from the town, and now I'm wondering, okay, back in 2006, why was only a portion of it annexed into Surf City limits?
You say a portion of it, this piece of property is a half an acre?
Yes.
Well, it was done as part of a larger tract that was 7.5 acres, so he actually annexed in that 7.5 acres at the time. And somewhere along the way.
It wasn't the same owner, so nothing makes sense.
But once it was annexed in, it's in, that property's in. Even if it then gets subdivided, it would still be in the city limits.
Right, right. And since the town of Surf City's not offering any, sewer, septic, water, what are my benefits?
It has no water and has no septic now?
No. And it will never have town sewer or water. And like I said, everybody in the neighborhood is not within Surf City limits except for the lot to my left.
Sorry.
I think there was, back in 2006, if I can remember correctly, Ken Watkins purchased some of this property from Mr. Harry Courts. And Mr. Ken Watkins moved about 5 or 6 homes off of the island over there on Courts and on Rab Road.
Those were moved, I think, weren't they moved recently and they moved to Old Landings Road?
The homes on Courts Lane, just down from this lot, were moved off the island like in 2005 and 2006.
Okay.
In that little area, he requested to come into the town of Surf City because of zoning purposes. He needed that zoning in order to allow him to move these homes and make them smaller lots.
Okay, so the purpose was to move homes off the island onto the mainland?
Or just to establish lots so that he could construct homes.
Okay, because it's my understanding that as the homeowner on 207 Quartz Lane, I need to also maintain the road.
Let me ask you a question. When you bought this, there was no title search done, there was no due diligence done as far as?
There was title search and.
That came back as being in town of Surf City or not in town?
I'd have to check. But I only recently found out all the preliminary searches that were done said it was outside of Surf City limits.
Because if the title search was done, it would identify it as being part of Surf City, wouldn't it, Amy? If it was done right, I mean, if it was, it should be,
The only thing that I can
title
say
company should have.
is that when I came here in 2019 and early 2020, we updated the zoning map to make sure that it matched. And we did verify that all of our zoned properties on the zoning map matched everything that Pender County showed as in town limits. So it was in early 2020 on Pender County GIS shown as in the town limits. That would be my only tie-in with it.
And no conversation was made between you and the guy that you bought it from that said he told you that it was or wasn't?
No. And like I said, the lot to the right of me, I didn't purchase it now because of the issue. If would eventually build on that lot, it would be an acre lot at that point. My issue is, okay, half my house is in the limits, the other half isn't. So, it's going to be an issue going forward either way.
Amy, if he combines the lots, will that automatically pull that second lot into our jurisdiction?
Good question.
Yeah.
That's my
So-
problem.
So generally, if a property is split zoned, then the county and the municipality can come up with an agreement in which who is going to have jurisdiction. My assumption is that the county would say, since half of it's in the town jurisdiction, go ahead and apply the full zoning to the entire lot.
Is that something that you don't want to happen?
Correct.
You don't want us to apply the zoning, or you don't want to pay taxes on the other half, because those are separate?
I would like to stay out of Surf City jurisdiction.
Are you familiar with the differences between the town's planning and the county's planning?
Somewhat.
I don't know, well, it'd be up to you, but I just want to make sure you don't say, yeah, this is what we want to do. Oh, crap, I didn't really like the way they do stuff. Can I come back and do it like I want it?
No, I'd be confident without it.
This might be a ridiculous question, but I've asked them before. I'm not afraid of it. The only question that's not asked is a stupid question. But it's a half acre, and you
Right.
say that, so it's, if you're going to build a house, half your house would be on that piece of property, and the other half would be on the other side. Can I ask you, what size house do you intend on building? I mean, a half acre to me seems like a lot of space.
Right.
It seems like you could build a pretty decent-sized house on a half acre. I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just asking for my own sake.
I mean, right now, I could build a 3-bedroom house on the existing lot, which would be sufficient based on the septic and all that. It's considered would be a 3-bedroom house.
I was just wondering.
You have a 3-bedroom septic permit on
207.
207.
Yep.
And
a
it's
well
on,
permit.
it's on the lot, it's not an easement, like it's not an off-site easement. Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
I was curious, the additional property that you were interested in buying, how large is that property?
Also half an acre.
Also half an acre?
It was just going to be as a buffer necessarily.
I understand. So each property is about the same size?
Yes, ma'am.
One more thing that I just want to, if that property is removed from the town of Surf City, then I think we share with fire and EMS, but would our police department support that property if it's just Pender County at that point? I don't think he's listening.
I think we would still respond, but I'll let the chief answer that question.
Sorry.
It would probably only respond to the 2 homes that are in the Surf City jurisdiction on that road.
So if they were to de-annex this property and he builds a home there, would Surf City Police Department respond to calls on that lot? So that's just, I used to live in an area that's in Surf City that's not in Surf City as well, so
Right.
just to keep that in mind, that is a pretty big service that's offered, that when you look at it from a county standpoint, if something happens and it's summer and traffic and everything else, you're removing that service that you have by being in Surf City as well.
Also,
Just-
while we're saying police department, how's the fire department?
We cover the Northeast Fire District, so it's covered in that district.
Right.
Thank you.
But like I said, the majority of the homes on that street are not within Surf City limits.
Okay, so this time I'm just gonna call for consensus on how everyone feels in moving forward in supporting this. Trudy?
I know, I'm thinking. I know that you can take this to the General Assembly and do and go further means and such like that. I'm not in favor of the de-annexation at this point.
I don't think I am either. It's too not enough information, and it's, like I said, I don't know, if we wrap the gavel on it today, it doesn't happen, it's still,
Yeah, you
it's
can
not really
still
up to
proceed.
us.
I'm not in support of it either.
Same.
Okay, so at this time, we do not have consensus to move forward as far as the city supporting the de-annexation.
So now I gotta go to Pender, to the county,
No,
instead, or how does that work?
de-annexation is an act of the North Carolina General Assembly.
Okay.
So it has to be carried forward through a bill. So your local representative, which would be Representative Carson Smith, and then your senator would be Senator Brent Jackson. Those would be the two individuals that would potentially introduce that bill into the General Assembly. And they are in short session right now, so I would say try to get up with their offices as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 2, committee appointments. We have committee.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry for walking in late too. On the previous topic though, I just wanted to.
Excuse me, can you come up to the
Yes,
mic
absolutely.
and
No problem. My wife tells me my voice is too loud, but happy
please
to approach the
state your
microphone.
name and your address?
Yep, Andrew Davis, 305 Edgewater Way. I represented Dan in the purchase of 207 Courts. The previous owner actually did not know that it was a part of Surf City. And you can look at the tax records. They did not pay taxes for the years that they owned the property. Dan actually went ahead and paid taxes on their behalf to make sure that he was in. And I'm sorry if I missed this. I just want to make sure this is covered because it would be remiss if I didn't say something. He went ahead and paid tax on behalf of the previous owner because he wanted to come up and be level with the city. And the previous owner, again, did not know that the actual property was annexed. Therefore, during the proceeds of the sale of the property, neither agent on either side of the transaction nor previous owner and future owner being Dan, understood that it was part of Surf City. Furthermore, I know you guys know the majority of that street is not within the Surf City limits. It was not clear after talking to the clerk and the city planner how it came about that the actual property was annexed. And so that's kind of the grounds on which this is laid. And if that was already covered and I'm just wasting your time, I apologize. But again, I would be remiss if I didn't say something.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, item number 2, committee appointments for the Planning Board, Beautification Enhancement Committee, Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, Board of Adjustments, Shoreline Resiliency Committee, and Promotions, Events, Tourism, etc. And Carla has gave each one of y'all a ballot, and I'll let you proceed on how to move forward with our ballots.
On each ballot, you'll see the number of openings and as well as the applicants listed below that. So you'll need to just check the number of openings that are on each ballot and make sure you sign each one before sending it in. Okay, all the ballots were unanimous, and these will be the names that will be put on consent agenda for June 4th for appointment. For Shoreline and Resiliency, you have 3 openings. Those will be George Howard, Matt Jones, and Cody Lugins. For Board of Adjustment, you have 2 openings. That's Stan Griffin, and John Davis. For Beautification and Enhancement, you have Harley Jones. Planning Board will be David Ward as an alternate, Renee Rhodes, Stephen Pasquantonio, and then for the ETJ member that'll be sent to Pender County is Greg Kane. Parks and Recreation, Russ Lindsay and Stephanie Jones. And the Promotion, Special Event and Tourism is Adam Graves and Meredith Marchant.
All right, thank you, Carla. Next item number 4, resolution supporting the purchase of the South End by North Carolina Coastal Land Trust.
Number 3 as well.
Oh, okay, I skipped number 3. Promotion, Special Events, Tourism Advisory Committee, schedule revision. Ms. Jody doing that, or you?
The committee has just asked to change the time of that meeting, and since you had approved their calendar last year, they'll stay the same day, which is the first Thursday of the month, and they want to change it from 3 p.m. to 9 a.m., and that would start in August because July is, they would do June, and then July 4th is on a Thursday, so that would be on the 9th. And then after that, it would be the first Thursday of the month at 9 a.m.
Just need a consensus.
I'm fine.
Yes. All right, everybody's good. Thank you. All right, now moving forward to resolution supporting the purchase of the South End by North Carolina Coastal Land Trust. We need any discussion? I think so. This is
I
basically.
think everybody's familiar with this, where the North Carolina Coastal Land Trust has made offer to purchase the South End. They do have to come up with the money within the year, and Topsail Beach has asked that other towns pass a resolution in support as well.
It is just a resolution to support their efforts to raise money to purchase the South End. It's not that they're asking us to give them money or raise money for them. It's just a resolution supporting their efforts.
I was gonna just make sure that we're not committing any funds to this.
The fundraising, we're just,
I did know that before I agreed.
Okay,
I still agree.
Yeah,
yes.
me too.
All
Yep.
right, we got a consensus on that. Budget ordinance amendment for the Sand Hall project. Kyle?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and good morning, fellow council and members of the public. We are requesting an additional approximately $6,000 to add to the original budgeted amount of $280,000 for the immediate Sand Hall project that was completed in April. This will close out that project, and there was an overage in basically construction management and engineering for the project. So that's what we are requesting. The funds will come from the Beach Nourishment Fund and go directly into that project fund. All the invoices are attached to the request that you can see.
Any questions or concerns? Consensus to move forward?
Yes.
Okay. Next item is the Pender County Comprehensive Transportation Plan. And that's Miss Amy Combs.
Right, so I'm used to controlling it from my computer, so I may be a little off today with the actual guy. I may go the wrong way. So this presentation was put together by the North Carolina Department of Transportation. They are the lead on this, but I'm going to be putting it together. I'm presenting it to you today. So the Pender County Comprehensive Transportation Plan update is currently underway. Oops, wrong button. All right, Pender County, its municipalities, Cape Fear Rural Planning Organization, and the North Carolina Department of Transportation have created a steering committee to start the Pender County Comprehensive Transportation Plan. The CTP is a 25 to 30-year long-range multimodal transportation plan that will assess Pender County's existing and future transportation needs, including roadways, bicycle, pedestrian, transit, and rail facilities and services. The goal of a CTP, or the goals of the CTP, are to assist with identifying transportation deficiencies, setting short and long-term transportation priorities, and establishing a relationship between local and regional expectations, and to reinforce and support other local and regional planning and funding initiatives. Once this plan is finalized, we will come back to you for the adoption of your portion of the plan. We will also keep you updated on the development of the CTP throughout the process. So our last CTP was adopted in February of 2011. It was the Topsail area CTP, so it covered the island and kind of Surf City. Pender County updated a CTP in January of 2016, and it covered portions of Pender County. So this new CTP will include Surf City in that overall Pender County. However, it will remove the portion of Pender County that is located within the Wilmington Metropolitan Planning Organization area. So one thing with the CTP, this is one of the documents we look at for funding in the state transportation program. So this document is important to have. Oops, wrong way. So one of the most important pieces of information required to develop the CTP is to gather the county growth data. This data is gathered from the Wilmington Travel Demand Model, which includes all of Pender County, and the Office of State Budget and Management to determine the future population growth. The annual growth rate for this CTP is going to be 2%, according to the Wilmington Travel Demand Model from 2021 through 2050. The county is growing at a much higher rate than the state of North Carolina. So our average rate in North Carolina is 1.3%, and we are obviously growing much faster than that. So the steering committee will be creating a long-range vision, goals, and objectives for the county. We want feedback from residents and visitors of the county to help create the vision, goals, and objectives, as well as to guide the entire CTP process. We ask you to help us spread the word about the survey that we have created for residents and visitors to take. The survey will be open from June 1st through September. And then here is what the survey is going to look like. It's got the QR codes. We'll post it here. We'll put it out on social media. The county will have it out in different places. And then the steering committee is working on other places. Like we have some people who are on bike committees and different things that are a part of it. So they're thinking of some of the target audiences and places that they can put it. And again, the CTP helps us get future funding for roadway projects. It is anticipated to be completed in the summer of 2026. So this is a long process with a lot of public input. But basically, they're building a model of Pender County and dumping all of this data in it, and it's going to show where in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, where our biggest problem areas are going to be, and it's going to help us to be able to plan for the future growth in what kind of roadway improvements we may be able to do. Some of our town roads will be included in this project, as well as NCDOT roads, so it is not just an NCDOT function. It also looks at town streets. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And then we also have Sam Boswell, is our Cape Fear COG representative on this. You're welcome to reach out to him with any questions. And Nazia is our Department of Transportation Planning Division engineer. She will be out with a new baby over the summer, so please wait until maybe September to reach out to her if you have any specific questions for her.
Is there a deadline on the survey?
The survey is going live on June 1st and will be run through September. I will get with Kelly to have it posted on our social media and sent out, and then also maybe try to put some in the lobby and over at Pivot Parking. If there's somewhere else that you can think of that would be a good place just to put a couple of the posters, let me know. I'm happy to print them out and run them over there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did that need a consensus or?
presentation,
Just
Madam Mayor.
presentation, okay. Yeah, where are you going, Amy? Okay.
Come on back.
Item number 7 is zoning subdivision ordinance update.
So as y'all have heard me talk about over the last, I don't know, couple years now, we're going to get the comprehensive land use plan done, and then we're going to get the zoning ordinances updated. So today we have online Mr. Greg Feldman, and Karen is there also, but since Greg's the one I see, I'm assuming he's going to give the presentation today. So he is going to present on where we're at, the process, kind of where we are moving forward. So you all should have received hard copies today, nice little white notebooks for y'all to read. We have also we have created a website under the planning, under community development. So all of the chapters are online for the public to read. And as we have discussed on the 30th of the month, we will have a joint meeting with Planning Board. But Greg's going to give you some background and just kind of let you know where we're at. He's happy to answer any questions at the end. And then or Karen is happy to answer any questions. And then I'm happy to come back up if you have any questions for me.
Morning, Greg.
All right, good morning, Mayor, members of council. I'm actually going to kick it over to Karen just for a quick introduction and kind of an overview of our agenda this evening, but I'm going to circle back and be talking with you all a little bit through the updates and progress we've made to date. So very excited and thankful for you all allowing us to be here this morning and provide you with this update.
Good morning. Hope everyone can hear us just fine. Again, a pleasure to be here. And we have seen some of your faces at our steering committee meetings, so it's nice to be able to appear before you today. Just gonna go over our agenda. I know you have a very full agenda today for your workshop, so we'll try to breeze through the next 20 plus slides and get you talking. The idea here is to present this information so that when we come down on the 30th, that the information that you're going to read in those books, we can discuss that, build consensus with steering committee, and then move forward from there. So today is just a presentation of materials. Again, we hope that you will then read through the ordinances that you've been provided, and then come back on the 30th. We'll be working behind the scenes, but we want to give you this information at least now so that we can have a focus on the discussion on the 30th. So just starting off real quick, our land use code outline consists of 2 different documents. As you're aware, there's a subdivision ordinance and a zoning ordinance. So when we put it together, it will look something like this. The subdivision ordinance or the zoning ordinance will be first. I'm not sure what is Appendix A and what is Appendix B. And they will be in order. The zoning ordinance sections talk about general provisions, administration, procedures, zoning districts and dimensional standards, use standards, environmental and coastal presentation. I just realized your screen is not progressing like mine is, and I am so sorry for that. Okay, use standards, environmental and coastal protection, design standards, signs, definitions, and then attachments. The reason that we did this is because currently your ordinance is a little bit choppy. Things have been added in, things have been changed, but it doesn't read very consistently or doesn't have a great flow to it. So we wanted to change the sections around so that the ordinance has much more of a flow to it. And this kind of goes basically with how we would see it being used with the administration and procedures right up front for any developers or any person from the public that would be reading it. Okay, so we're gonna just go quickly through the sections of the zoning ordinance and subdivision. The first one is subdivision. I'm gonna kick it back to Greg real quick so he can go over some of the aspects of the subdivision ordinance.
All right, great, thank you, Karen. So we'll begin with a quick overview of the subdivision ordinance. We've reserved time at the end of this presentation for any questions that you all might have, but if you think of a question as we go through these individual sections, starting with subdivision, please feel free to stop us and we can have a discussion right then. So starting with the subdivision ordinance, that portion of this update process, this this ordinance really just defines different subdivision types, starting with your exempt subdivisions, bulleted up top there. These are gonna be your subdivisions that are outlined by general statute. These include recombinations of land, 10-acre subdivision exemptions, so anything that, piece of property that's subdivided into lots that are 10 acres or greater with no right-of-way dedication, that would also fall under this exempt category. Expedited subdivisions are a fairly new subdivision type offered by statute. These allow for subdivisions that are more than 5 acres to be divided into no more than 3 lots, assuming each of those meet the town's minimum lot size and dimensional requirements for the respective zoning district. Minor subdivisions, the threshold for minor subdivision has not changed from what the town currently has in place. These are going to be your subdivisions that are no greater than 2 acres in size and result in 5 or fewer lots, all of which front a previously approved street. And then your major subdivisions are going to be any other subdivision that doesn't meet the criteria for those that I just mentioned. So starting with some of the changes that you'll see in this ordinance as you all go through it, we have a review process table added in. That's going to outline each different subdivision type that I just listed off, and kind of the roadmap of how those subdivisions are approved, when the different checkpoints are with staff, with you all in some cases, specifically for preliminary plats and major subdivisions. So look through that table, and if you form any questions, please let us know with those, or see anything out of the ordinary that you'd like to discuss, please let us know. The next add to this section is a plat requirements table. It's called a plat requirements table, but you really have 3 different process types that it talks through, beginning with sketch plan, your preliminary plat, and final plat. This is really intended to serve as a tool for staff, as well as applicants, developers, to kind of look through this checklist, if you will, as they prepare their plans and make sure that they've checked every box before it's provided to the town and you all. Also added in here, just a good practice, adding in the Department of Environmental Quality references. Oftentimes these are common procedures, but it's a great reminder for staff, for applicants, to check in with these agencies and make sure if they meet their applicable thresholds for state permitting, that they are aware of that and begin those conversations. So you'll see in this ordinance now, we have a reference to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality's standards manual, which outlines certain protocol for erosion and sedimentation control measures, such as silt fencing. So you'll see a reference in that section. Also within the subdivision ordinance, it'll have design standards. These are your typical standards for blocks, lots, open space, roadways, sidewalks, and driveways, bulleted down there at the bottom. These haven't changed too much. I would say the most notable change are that now residential subdivisions will require bicycle parking at a rate of 1/2 of a bicycle parking space. 1/10 of a bicycle parking space per dwelling unit. So bicycle spaces also, you'll see, are intended to be provided central to the development in which they are located. So in other words, ideally they are close to either your cluster mailbox, if you have one in the subdivision, or your amenity center. So that's going to be the most notable, probably the most notable change. Obviously it's going to be restructured and look new to you all, so please, as you look through that and form any questions or miss anything or see anything that you'd like to be incorporated into this ordinance, please let us know, and we will be happy to discuss that and add it in. I think that's a good overview. I'll stop there for just a second before we move over to the zoning ordinance to see if any of you all have any questions, and if not, we can keep moving or save those questions for the end of this presentation.
I'm not seeing any questions right now, Greg.
Okay, great. Well, Karen, I will we'll go ahead and move to the next slide and start talking about the zoning ordinance.
All right, thanks, Greg. So again, moving back to the zoning ordinance, again, just as a refresher that both subdivision and zoning make up your land development code or your land use code. So we're using these together. So when we talk about the ordinance, it's basically both of these ordinances together. So moving on to zoning though, we're gonna talk about, again, and just go through what each of these chapters are briefly. So section 1 of your zoning ordinance is a chapter that contains basically all of your legalese. It's all of your terms and conditions of zoning, what happens when something is found invalid, and then what, how that process is, does not invalidate the rest of your ordinance. It talks about consistency with your comprehensive plan. And it talks most importantly about those transitional provisions. What happens in the transition from your current ordinance to your new ordinance? Because there might be applications that are pending. There might be applications that have just been recently approved, but now you change the ordinance, and what happens with those procedures. And those terms are called permit choice and vested rights, and a lot of that is discussed here in section 1. Section 2 is administration, and it basically establishes your boards and the roles of staff in the land development process. So that's going to talk about what your role as town council will be, what the planning board does, board of adjustment, your administrator, which is your staff, and your technical review committee, which is your either hired or in-house professional staff, engineering, fire department, those types of things. For each one of those entities, it talks about the organization and membership of those boards. It talks about their powers and duties, conflicts of interest, and then other things such as taking minutes, voting, and quorum requirements. Section 3 is your procedures. Now, this is probably where you're going to see the biggest change. Section 3 tends to be the longest chapter that we write. And because what it does is you'll see these flow charts over here on the right-hand side. Basically, the flow charts are associated with every type of development process that the town has. You'll see one of these flow charts, and then we go through the process in text as well as to writing those types of things. So you're gonna see a big visual change here in this section. We also include a lot of tables and charts here so that, again, easier to use, easier to comprehend. We want to talk about the compliance with 160D. So you're gonna see in this process the new updated requirements for special use permits, which you adopted last year. You're also gonna see some changes to the processes and procedures. Right now, I believe the board sees the council sees any development over 5,000 square feet. We've changed that into a minor and major site plan. Minor being that it will be basically anything under 5,000 square feet, anything under 20,000 square feet of building will now be administrative, as will anything under 40 multifamily units, and then an expansion of an existing building by over or under 5%. So those things are meant to expedite procedures, make it a little bit more development friendly, and things like that. As you go through this ordinance and as you review it, pay special attention to what those processes and procedures are. The intent is not to take any power away from planning board or from the town council. The idea is just to make the process easier and flow more efficiently through the development process. So again, spend some time here looking at what those procedures are, and realize though that some of those improvements are made because of 160D as well. Again, chapter 3 is long and it is a little boring, so I'm not gonna sugarcoat it there. That one will be a little difficult to get through, but again, a lot of important changes may be made there. Also in section 4. Section 4 is 2 parts. Section 4 talks about zoning districts, and it also talks about your dimensional standards, and we'll talk about those in 1 second. But here again is another chapter where you're gonna see some big changes. Now, I'm gonna read what these bullets say. The majority of the town will remain the same. We're just changing the names. So there's minimal rezonings. The intent of the rezonings is to be more in line with the character of the town, and I'll explain what some of those are in 1 second. And then also, to make some health, safety, and welfare changes, and that is that no new manufactured homes are going to be allowed on island, except those being replaced in existing mobile home parks or manufactured home parks. So the only planned actual rezoning of this area is that the canals would go from a manufactured, or MHS, which is, I think, manufactured home subdivision, to an R3. And R3 would not permit manufactured homes on island. Then there's the creation of a new industrial district, and that is by a rezoning only. The idea here was to remove the gateway commercial. As you're coming into town and as you go over the bridge, a lot of that area is just general commercial right now. It's a C3, it's a highway business district. And that allows right now very heavy commercial uses and light industrial uses. And we didn't feel that those were appropriate on that entrance and gateway into the town. So we're creating an industrial district so that if someone wants to build an industrial area, most likely that's gonna have to be rezoned, because right now those properties of that size and nature are in the county, and they would need to be brought into the town through an annexation process. So with an annexation process also comes a rezoning, so that would be that change to an industrial district. And then the other change that you'll see on here is conditional zoning. Conditional zoning is it's been around for a while, but it's sort of a newer process that municipalities throughout North Carolina are sort of beginning to adopt. And that allows for a very site-specific plan. So anything that's been done as a PUD in the previous application is now gonna become conditional zoning. So again, lots of changes here, mostly in names. And I want to go back real quick and just talk about those character changes we were talking about. Right now you have an R15, an R10, and an R5. The reason those are given those names and numbers is 15,000 square feet is the size of a single family unit. In the R10, 10,000 square feet is the minimum size for a single family unit. And then in the R5, it's 5,000 square feet. Because in the R5, or because in some of these districts, we're not only having single family uses. There are some associated uses that you can put in there. And those aren't necessarily tied to that square footage. So we wanted to change that to just an R1, R2, and R3 to make that a little bit more simple. R3M becomes R3 mainland instead of R3 manufactured home, because the R3 is only going to be on the mainland, and that's going to allow for a variety of residential uses in addition to manufactured homes. So that R3M and that R4 are where you're going to see your higher density, your mobile home or manufactured home parks in those types of developments. Again, the O and I stays the same, the neighborhood business stays the same. The C1 changes from a central business district more to your gateway commercial district. And the Island Town Center, C1 goes to Island Town Center. And the reason that is going to allow for this sort of, creation of this special area that might be able to have special district design standards or special tax purposes that would allow some development or redevelopment in that area. So again, I don't want to harp too much on this. We'll talk about this a lot more detail at our work session. But again, this is to just get you thinking of some of those changes and why we are making or recommending some of those changes. And again, none of this was done in a bubble. This was done with staff input and the input from the planning board. The other part of section 4 is the dimensional standards, and this basically talks about how we measure and how we look at things such as building heights, setbacks, yards, frontages, and all types of things like that. All of those changes and all of those dimensions have been put into a table. We have not changed most of this. I want to say that 90% of this is, or actually probably 98% of this is what is currently in your zoning ordinance. We don't want to create any nonconformities. This is the idea of this is to really just stay consistent with what you have currently. And again, that's just what that says. I think here we're going to change over to Greg, and he's going to talk about our uses and use standards. And again, if you have any questions, we'll probably punt those to the end, but I'll pause here in case there is something that's pressing. All right, Greg, I think you're good to go.
All right, thank you, Karen. I think now we're going to move on to some of the more exciting updates and sections of the zoning ordinance, at least I think they are. Beginning with the permitted use table, or section 5 rather, uses, which contains the permitted use table. This may be a familiar section to some of you all, but just as a quick summary of what it is, this table outlines various land uses along with the districts that each land use is permitted in and what type of process might come along with that use, including specific standards to that use. The most common use and the best example I can think of one of these land uses that will have supplemental standards will be your adult establishments, your family care homes. Some of these use standards are going to be outlined and determined by North Carolina general statute, but others have custom use standards to them. So this will be an important section for you all to review, of course, and look through and see if you see any supplemental standards that may need to be enhanced, those that might not be necessary. So just keep that in mind as you review this section. And we will, I think, move along now to environmental and coastal protection. Karen, great. So section 6, environmental and coastal protection, a new section that we're excited for you all to review. Starting with the most notable change, I think, will be the creation of resource conservation areas that may not count towards minimum lot area for new developments. So in other words, if you have a we'll use the example of a 30-acre tract that's proposing to be subdivided, have a new housing development on it, whether it be single family or multifamily, and it has 5 acres that are considered resource conservation areas, which you'll see in this section consist of 5 items. The first being the Atlantic Ocean, of course, waters of the state, which we've linked a pretty recent that I'm sure maybe you all have even followed, determination on what waters of the state really are. By the North Carolina general statute, those are now outlined: streams, coastal wetlands, and lands within 30 feet of the normal high water line. All of those areas are now bundled up under this resource conservation area. So please review that and let us know your thoughts there and see if you see any changes that you'd like be incorporated into this section. Happy to take a look at those and discuss those. Another good practice, I mentioned some references previously to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality Standards. Another good reference we want to make sure applicants are aware of, and a good resource that they can use and lean on, is they'll likely have permitting involved, especially when we're talking about on-island properties, are those requirements for CAMA permits. So what those look like, just a good reference to that agency and kind of what's expected as they prepare those applications and prepare to coordinate with them. Again, we talked about silt fencing and subdivision. We also want to reference it here in our environmental and coastal protection. We understand that a hot topic is regulating fill, specifically on island. So what you'll notice now in this section 6 are those recent text amendments that that council has used. also other mitigation requirements now for willow oaks, river birches, red maples, southern magnolias, and we've also added in a shrub, being that of the wax myrtle, which will also be deemed significant and require mitigation when they are a height of 10 feet or taller and at least 5 feet in width. Tree preservation is not new to the town. It did exist, but only for properties within the Coastal Forest Overlay District. So how this is currently drafted, this tree preservation requirement would apply to the entire town's jurisdiction. So certainly something we want you all to consider. Look through those regulations. Let us know if you feel they're too intense, not intense enough. I'm happy to have those conversations and look forward to those. So looking forward to your feedback on that new requirement. Landscaping, this section fairly speaks for itself. Essentially, what we've done now is added in different typicals, different diagrams, cross sections, however you're most familiar with calling them, but essentially have different landscaping requirements per 100 linear feet based upon the land use on which they are buffering. So those typicals and graphics are now added in this section 7 for you all to review to make sure you're comfortable with the amount of plantings that are required per 100 linear feet between different land uses. So certainly look through those and let us know your opinions on them. Outdoor lighting, really not a whole lot of change from what the town currently regulates. There weren't any concerns expressed. At this point in time, I think the most notable requirement from this section would be that a maximum fixture height shall be 30 feet for full cutoff fixtures and 20 feet for non-cutoff fixtures. This includes residential uses. So something to just review, see if it needs any touch-up, but that requirement hasn't changed much, I will say. Moving on to parking, what we've done with the town's current parking regulation is we've tried to closely align it with the table of permitted uses, just to kind of not necessarily on a one-to-one with those permitted land uses and associated parking requirements, but fairly close. And as bulleted here, the most notable change, I would say, are the number of spaces required for single-family residential uses. The intent behind increasing this requirement would be to avoid those adverse effects on the roadways, clogging up travel ways on different roads because you have overflow parking now from a different residence, whether it be a short-term rental or whether it be just someone's home with family visiting in town. All of a sudden you end up with 8 cars, 4 of which are on the roadway. So we're just slightly increasing the parking requirement for residential uses. So please take a look at that, share your concerns. I know parking can be a hot topic, so please let us know your thoughts there. Moving on, lastly, building design standards for non-residential and multifamily buildings. There are now additional design standards from what the town currently has in place. The applicability of these design standards obviously will not apply to single-family, 1 and 2 family dwellings, as we have bulleted there. And they won't apply to properties that are actually within a regulated floodplain. But these requirements include first floor transparency, certain shutter and light fixture requirements, building color requirements. So we're happy to discuss those in further detail once you all have a chance to review or have any questions at this point. We're happy to discuss those. Moving on to signs. This section was completed in part thanks to wholly in part thanks to staff. We really appreciate working closely with them to get this section and give it a complete overhaul just for ease of use. Currently, how signage is regulated tend to be confusing, and I know it can also be a hot topic in the town, really in any town for that matter. So what we've done are create definitions. We've added a few sign types, which you'll notice, but we've created these definitions and included examples along with a graphic of what this sign looks like. This is going to help tremendously with interpretation when you have that sign that might fall in between two, being able to closely look at it, reference this section now with these images that will help make a determination on what the appropriate sign type is. So we have this table that you'll now see on the right side that's going to show those different sign types, how many are permitted, what the size is illumination permitted or not, max height of those, how far do they need to be set back, if they're a freestanding sign, of course, and any notes, any supplemental standards that might go along with those. So I know we're still working with staff to kind of take a more in-depth look at temporary signs and how those are regulated. So we're going to continue those conversations as we get through the remainder of the update to make sure everyone's comments and concerns are addressed. All right. I believe we're going to talk about definitions now. Karen, I think I'll pass it back over to you.
Sure. So again, wrapping up here, chapter 9, almost our last section. We do have a section 10, which is sort of like our attachments. That'll be a plant list and your telecommunications ordinance. But chapter 9 is basically our definitions, and this is probably one of the most important chapters. And even though it's very nondescript, or everybody just looks at definitions in the back, it's truly what comes down to understanding and defining what specific uses are, and how things are measured, and all of that comes down to the definition. So these are quite important. Anything that's referenced in 160D, we brought over into this section. Every one of your uses in your use table should have a close definition. We are still updating definitions. Definitions is probably the last chapter that will be finally completed, because we want to make sure that, again, any questionable term in the ordinance is included in your definition section. So as you go through all of these sections and review and read, we want to make sure that we have thorough definitions for each one of those terms that you may not understand. So again, please pay attention to that when you are reviewing. If you don't have a definition for a word that you don't understand, please let us know. We want to absolutely include that in there. So I think we've covered most of the major changes, but we did want to just talk to them. Again, the zoning district names and reshuffling that we spoke about, the rezoning of the canals area, we know that that might be a little bit hard to swallow for some, but that is basically, again, trying with the intent of removing manufactured homes from the island. It's the creation of the Island Town Center, and it's talking about this new industrial zoning district. Stricter standards for the coastal forest overlay. We've taken everything to date that you have approved, and we're looking at a little bit more intense clarifications, as Greg mentioned, on infill, or I'm sorry, not infill, on fill development or fill regulations. And we've also, again, upped some of those tree preservations to make them townwide, not just in the coastal forest overlay. We talked about, again, the overall reorganization of this ordinance as a whole, using colors and charts and graphics to really make it easier to use. If there's something that you feel still needs another graphic or could be put better used as a graphic, please let us know, because again, we can add those in. And then we're talking about temporary signs and building design standards. These are still new, still even refining them a little bit, but again, those are just through our discussions with staff, but we hope that you can provide some great input onto those. And then when you're reviewing it, these are just some of the considerations we'd like you to keep in mind. When you're reviewing the chapters, again, if you find words or phrases you don't understand, please reference the definitions. And if that definition is not in there, please mark it so that we can include that. Look for incomplete areas or something that's obviously missing. One of these right now, we know it's not in there, are access easements in the subdivision chapter and in chapter 7. We kind of just left it because we're still working on defining how those easements are going to be defined and how they're going to be in. So you'll see areas that are still blank that we still need to fill in, and we'll be providing those to you as we move forward. When you review the uses on the use table in chapter 5, we want you to say, what, are these the uses we want permitted in these zoning districts? And if we don't, what are we going to do? Are we going to include regulations? Are we going to prohibit them outright? Are we going to require them with a special use permit? Are we going to require them with conditional zoning? Are the regulations in the text too strong, too little? Or do we need to fix those? And then if something's not regulated that you would expect to see standards for, please let us know what those are so that we can add those in. And then again, when reviewing the definitions, if you see something that's still confusing, even after you read the definitions and you don't understand it, please let us know. Is there something that would benefit from a graphic? And then, are the definitions where you expect to find them? We define signs very briefly in chapter 9, but most of the sign definitions are in the sign chapter. So again, just make sure that those definitions are where you would expect them. If you would like some of them in the text, please let us know. We can move them there. And last but not least, moving forward, what to expect from here. So you have the full draft that was included in your packet. If you have not had an opportunity to read that, I think it's also shared on the town's SharePoint drive. I think steering committee has access to that. I'm not sure if you are going to be if you're one that works digitally, we may want to give you access to that so that you can start marking those up again digitally. But you'll have the option to do it on paper or digital. As you are all working on that, Greg and I are also working to make sure that we're going to combine all the chapters into one document. We're going to add in our hyperlinks, and we're going to be doing all those behind the scenes sort of additions. Anything that we still marked for questions, we're still going to start answering those questions, and we will have a final, draft 2 to you in a couple weeks. And what we want to do is start incorporating some of your questions and concerns that we'll address again on the 30th. So again, speak to your constituents as well. Let them know that a copy of this ordinance is on the town website. So if they have questions or concerns, to read through that and let us know what those are. Again, on May 30th is the joint planning and education session for both the planning board and the town council. Again, we want to build consensus between everyone in the room. Not everybody's going to agree on everything, but at least if we can come together with what is in the best interest of the town, that's our ultimate goal. And then we want to address any issues at that work session or prior, before we go to planning board, and then before you for the public hearing and adoption. So we want to be getting rid of all of these questions and concerns ahead of time so that when we go through the approval process, it's smooth. And then just so that you know what is coming up, again, there'll be a planning board recommendation meeting, maybe in June. If not, it'll be in July. And then public hearing and town council meeting will be anticipated for July or in August based on how the planning board meeting goes. And again, right before that public hearing and town council meeting, we hope to hold a public question and answer session so that if anybody from the public does have questions, we can answer them again outside of the meeting so that we can again sort of address concerns or questions. And then, let's see. And then if you have any questions, you could either email, we would suggest you email Amy because she might be a better first start than us, but then you can always email myself or Greg and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions. So I am sorry that we took up so much of your time today. We know you have a busy agenda, but thank you for letting us present and we appreciate your patience with us.
Okay. Thank you, Karen and Greg from Withers and Rotherwell for putting together this presentation and the time thank you to staff that has took the time and planning board that has, it's took a lot of their time over the last couple months to get to the point to where we are today, and it is something that was very much needed to be updated, so we are looking forward to completing our ordinance update. Anyone have any questions?
Nope. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next item, unless someone needs to take a break. We good? All good? Okay. Number 8 is going to be the budget ordinance amendment, the Mainland Park project. I think Kyle is going to handle this.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. Melissa's been under the weather this week, so I will take the next 3 as they're generally housekeeping items from finance. But the first item is your budget amendment for the Mainland Park project. So if you'll recall, we did budget $4.5 million to go to that project. This essentially takes it from Fund 21 and then puts this into Fund 50 So we will ask that council provide consensus to move that over to the June 4th consent agenda.
Anyone have any questions?
Nope.
Just a consensus to move forward?
I'm good with it.
Yes.
Okay. Next item, budget ordinance amendment NCOSB Elm grant.
So the North Carolina Office of State Budget and Management grant in the amount of $200,000 is a direct representation of the appropriation that the town had received for various public safety purchases, which included things like a new speed trailer or the drone and a couple of other things. We appreciate all the hard work that our state representatives have done to provide us that. But this budget amendment essentially is booking that $200,000 into Fund 40 for the grant agreement, and OSBM requires, and our auditor requires this to be reflected within our actual annual budget. So that's what the purpose of the budget amendment is for.
Any questions? We have a consensus to move forward?
I'm good with it.
Okay.
And I think the money is pretty much spent.
Yes.
Of course.
Next item is number 10, departmental transfers explained.
Yeah, so instead of going through budget amendments for smaller overages within line items, we are able to do a budget transfer between departments. We still have a balanced budget, but this just recognizes that transfer that occurred. It shows the accounts in which received increases from other departments. And then, like Melissa put in here, this transfer was completed on May the 7th, but we are, according to your purchasing policy, we're required to record that with y'all and make sure that you're aware of those transfers that are occurring. If there's any questions, I can try to dig into some of these. I did pull up the budget transfer that was completed on May 7th, but the total of all of these at $91,438 are all fairly minor dollar amounts that are moved between those departments. The largest amount documented here was $18,490 within the general fund, Fund 505. And again, I can get into the details if you'd like. I would just need to pull up some more information in MCSJ. But this is a housekeeping item, something that we do every year to clean up our books at the end of the fiscal year.
Any questions? Consensus to move forward?
Yes.
I'm good.
Okay. And item number 11, multi-use path map. And we're gonna, Amy comes, we'll come back up.
Hi again. So Karen alluded, or Greg, one of them, alluded to this in the zoning ordinance update, that we did this East Coast Greenway. It showed in the overall map, it showed a couple of different alternatives. It showed a spine, but it showed alternatives. To put some teeth in our ordinance, we needed a map that said, this is what we're doing, not this is kind of what we want to do, or this is where we think it would be great, but this is what we're doing. So this map was created based on conversations with our steering committee, internal staff, and the map is where we want the MUP to be. So this will go back into our zoning ordinance, and will be required of developers when they develop along this corridor. There are a couple of spaces, like there's the piece that goes along the property line of the Sniff Davis property. That path is not necessarily going to go along the property line. When someone comes in to develop that, they will make it go through their neighborhood in the best way that works for the town. So there is flexibility if it's shown on a property line like that it can, could move in that property so that they can develop it better. However, most of it is shown down either electrical corridors or roadways, and that is our intention. We also show areas that are outside of town, but that is our map, and we are asking that it move to consensus, or that it move to the next agenda for adoption on consensus. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And Kyle's happy to answer them as well.
Yeah, well, I just, Madam Mayor, if it's okay, I'll just add some more information to all of this. Was, as Amy and the consultants had alluded, we needed to start to get busy on this project, and of course, this being a priority of the town, we wanted to go ahead and try to solidify some of these lines. So what's before you is sort of that consensus taken into some practical application. For example, Highway 50 or the sort of corridor going up to the bridge. We know that utilities are not going to be able to be relocated. We have some major utility, electrical utility through there, water and sewer. That right of way is extremely tight. And then taking advantage of the understanding project of the R5900 of Coretta Drive extension and taking it down there, and then maximizing the park property to get down to Little Kinston Road, being a town road, made the most sense for us. In addition, Amy, Jody, and I have now interviewed 2 separate engineering firms to get them started in getting our first segment underway. So we'll hold one more interview next week with another firm. But the first segment that's been identified as the top priority of this entire project is going to be essentially from that little black portion by Magnolia Reserve on 210. And there's it's color-coded black because that's actually a multi-use path that's been completed, over to that Coretta Drive intersection or into the existing sidewalk network that continues down to 50, and you can actually get down to the beach from that location. So the first task order will be that first segment. We will obtain some preliminary cost estimates to determine how we're going to approach that project. But that is going to be that set priority. Another big task that we have put onto these potential consultants working with us is that we are going to expect grant money to build all of this, hopefully. We do know that there's going to be some town money that will have to go into it, but they hopefully trying to understand that the more grant money they can get, the more engineering they can do, and we can build. So this is a project that's going to be a multi-year project, but I feel like we've made some pretty good strides over the last 30 or 60 days to get us to this point. And having people at the table like Jones Onslow, who controls a lot of easements or right-of-way outside of DOT right-of-way, is really going to be an effective tool for us to get this constructed with hopefully lesser amounts of money when we have to go out and buy easements or buy right-of-way to construct. So other elements of this don't just include asphalt and structures that we'll have to build that go over wetland crossings or creeks and streams. It's things like trying to incorporate standard specifications for lighting, for benches, for water fountains, for bike fix stations, et cetera. All the things that we can standardize and get into Amy and Price's technical standards manual. We want to see that. This is a good opportunity to expand our memorial bench program throughout that path. And do we need to consider emergency call boxes in areas that it cuts through the woods or whatnot. So just trying to get busy with this project, and this is really our first step in seeing this to fruition. And as the consultant had noted, working with our developers to get their portions built. So we're excited about it. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and I know that everybody's eager to either be involved or see this project get started. So we'll be more than happy to work with those that want to be involved with it. So
Thank you.
yeah.
We just need a consensus on the proposed map before us today.
That's correct, yes.
I'm good. I'm
Yes.
good with it.
Okay,
Looks great.
awesome. Next item, Northeast Pender Fire District contract, and Chief Alan Wilson will present.
You're not at the podium yet.
Run. Look, I only got 2 minutes, so that's what I've been told. But anyway, what you have in front of you is the new Pender County Northeast Pender Fire District contract with the town of Surf City. We do contract with the county to provide fire protection service to about 40 square miles of unincorporated area outside of the town of Surf City's limits. So this is a new contract. We've worked on it for about a year and a half with the county to get some things ironed out with some performance measures and things of that nature that are in place. But for the most part, it's been pretty well vetted. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. But we're looking for just removal to the June consent agenda for approval.
Any questions?
Nope.
Just a consensus to move forward?
Let's move forward.
Yes. All right, thank you very much.
Perfect. How'd I do?
That was under 10 minutes.
Less than 2 minutes.
You don't have anything else to say? You want to come back just to tell a joke or?
Seconds.
Next item, Stormwater Management Authority Ordinance, and David Price, Director of Utilities.
The TV star. Saw you the other night. You did good, see?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. In your package is a draft stormwater ordinance. This ordinance establishes the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, that which will fund the new stormwater department. In the ordinance outlines the intent, the funding mechanism, the rates, the credits, and how the funds will be collected. I'm here if you have any questions, and we are hoping for a consensus to move it to a June 4th hearing and a vote.
Anyone have any questions?
Nope.
Just need a consensus to move forward.
Move forward.
Okay, thank you, David.
Thank you.
Next item, Budget Ordinance Amendment for Soundside Park, and Miss Jody Shepherd will present. And Gary Chris Carter.
Very Chris.
Madam Mayor and Council. So I'm here today to ask, I'm requesting a budget amendment in the amount of $35,000 for the extension of the amphitheater stage, electrical upgrades, and extending the backside of the amphitheater, which will be a wooden deck. We'll be extending the sides 6 foot. The front will be extended 5 foot. We're just, as far as the electrical, more or less, we're just trying to get that electrical up to grade, so that way staff will be able to work with it and not have too many questions. The one thing that we have not been able to work on or fix yet is the Christmas tree power. So we're still working with the electrical companies on that. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
So with these proposal or these quotes and things, that's a missing part?
Yeah, so right now, with our water table so high out there at the park, putting this electrical into the ground isn't going to be the best solution. Every company I talked with, they've mentioned vaults and stuff, but to be able to hook and unhook this equipment up, it will not be able to be in the ground until we come up with a better solution.
So, the issue has been, power. We talked about the Christmas tree is all controlled from the amphitheater, but it also controls different things. And I'm sure Jody can explain that much better, but can we look at potential solutions of running conduit where we're pulling the wire every time we put up the Christmas tree and take it down, which is not that big of a deal. Does the Christmas tree get moved closer to the amphitheater and we put the power source there? That way it's closer and we can connect in. So those are the things, and the total amount I think came up to $28,000.
That was my next question.
Yeah, this 35. Melissa made us do it, which is certainly recommended by her, and we agree with it, that it gives them a little bit of flexibility with it to try and figure out that solution. But as Chris was mentioning, the options that they started looking at was having these vaults underground, but they're made to have electrical connections, but they're not made to break that seal. So once the seal is broken, the vault is not any good. So they'll try to get creative. I trust that they'll figure out a solution with it. But
Yeah, so the electrical company, if we're approved for this, that we're going to go with, they actually have in-house fabrication, and they're going to bring their fabricator out and see what he can kind of come up with this as far as a good, safe solution for it.
So you're budgeting a little bit more, or requesting a little bit more just to
Yes, ma'am.
keep
So-
us from going back and forth.
Yes, ma'am. So if we're able to come up with a solution for the vault or the electrical for the Christmas tree, them funds would have to be added onto this right here.
How quickly is this starting?
So once this is approved, I will be getting in touch with these companies, and I will have start dates hopefully either by the end of today or Monday morning.
Okay, that's quick.
You know, we have a lot of events coming up, so we don't want those to disturb the
Yes,
events that
ma'am.
are coming up.
Yep, I will be working with Jody here to make sure we're not interfering with any events that are going to be out there. And I don't expect the concrete to probably take more than a week or two at the max. The electrical, I really don't want to give a timeline on that because it depends on what they find when they get in there.
So as soon as we move forward, if we get a consensus to move forward with this, then we'll be able to look into the opportunities as far as the timeline and working around our scheduled events, and then looking at our opportunities with that Christmas tree. Because as of right now, when you kick on the power for the amphitheater, you're charging everything. So over the years, things have been added and piecemeal together. It's time for us to get it where the amphitheater is running the amphitheater, and we can get the Christmas tree on its own circuit. So that way, when people go out there and utilize the park, when we utilize the park, everything's just much more consistent.
Me and Jody had this conversation yesterday, and you just need to keep in mind that during even a super king high tide, we're going to get flooding in the park. So, you know, moving it and keeping it above ground, if that's what has to happen, you know, I don't necessarily think that it has to be underground, but moving it to the side, I don't think is, you know, such a big idea, you know, big deal. If we did move it to the side.
And this will be one thing that we get worked out with the electrical company once they get on site.
One thing that I read in the masonry, we discussed the cattle gates and the sleeves, but I noticed it wasn't in there, but they know that they have to, we're providing the sleeves, correct?
Yes, yes, sir. So we'll go out there and we'll mark it out. They will do no more than just slide them in when they pour the concrete.
I thought that it was in there, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Very good.
So we just need consensus to move forward?
Just move forward.
Yep.
Thank you,
Thank
Madam
you.
Mayor and Council.
Thank you. All right, next item, ordinance amendment for the business registration.
All right, thank you,
Kyle?
Madam Mayor. This is our third, going into our fourth year of business registration. Municipalities used to have authority to do privilege licensing for various businesses throughout town. So we continue to work out kinks and hopefully make some improvements. So what we're asking for within the agenda request form, we had documented a collection period to change. However, we do not, after speaking with our finance director, we do not want to change that time frame because we do want that to correspond with our fiscal year. So we'll work around that, but we wanted to do was provide a definition for what a contractor is for that portion of the business registration. Also, to allow for the contractor business registration to have a sort of a rolling time frame for their annual renewals, so that does not fall on a certain month every year. Because sometimes contractors may not be doing work, throughout the entire year. So we think that that's a fair approach for that entity, and then removing late fees because they're paying for that once a year when they come and get a permit. So that's essentially the gist of it. We got to bring this to you because it is in our ordinance. And then if you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to try to answer those. And there's a little presentation that kind of went over all the information in your packet as well. Excuse me.
Any questions concerning this?
No.
Consensus to move forward?
Let's move forward.
Okay.
I will note, within your packet, there are some statistics on the business registration. We do take this opportunity to put all the businesses on our website. We did put that under our live, shop, dine, play, and stay location. So when people are searching for local businesses within Surf City, they do have that additional added exposure. So any businesses that are registered with the town, if they get us a hyperlink to their website, we will hyperlink that. So if you are a registered business and you have not done that, please get us that information. We'll be happy to add it.
All right, I think that will conclude our meeting. Again, I want to say thank you to the staff and to all of the boards and committees that help get these work plans into place. Thank you to each one of our council members that take the time to prepare and go over all these items before today. It makes it much easier on us when we get here and you, everyone is prepared for these meetings. So, keeping time in mind, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Have a great